Thank you, everyone. A little bit out of practice. Thank you for interrupting this beautiful summer evening to join us here today. Welcome. This is the Beverly School Committee Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 24th, 2022. We are still using a virtual meeting platform in a hybrid fashion, and the governor did extend the order that allows for this, but also Beverly had prior approval as long as the chair and a quorum of the body are present. We are using BevCam to both broadcast and stream us tonight, so I wanted to make everyone aware of that. We're also using the remote meeting platform, and I've learned that the BevCam now has closed captioning, so we're trying to use the professional closed captioning tonight rather than the meeting platform's version of that. So we'll see how it goes. I just wanted to remind everyone that this is a committee of the whole meeting. We do not have an agenda option for talking to the board this evening, but we will have that at our regularly scheduled meeting on September 14th. So the regular school committee on September 14th provides an opportunity for residents of Beverly to voice their concerns to the body. Just because we are using this meeting platform, I'm going to conduct a roll call just to make sure that everyone participating can see and hear each other. I would ask that people that are participating remotely do use the mute functionality to prevent background noise, and any sound, audio, or video that is provided tonight becomes part of the official record. So let's go ahead and conduct that roll call so we know who's participating. In the room, we have our recording secretary, Liz Karan, Mayor Michael Cahill, here. Dr. Sue Chirocek, Miss Lorinda Visnick, here. Miss Kimberly Coelho, here. Dr. Kenan McKenzie, here. Miss Karen Robinson, here. And I am Rachel Abel. We are also joined by our HR director, Erin Brown, here. And Bethany Splansky, our director of People Personnel and Special Ed, and our finance director, Jean Sherburne, here. We're joined online by school committee member Dr. Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
We also have Dr. Andre Morgan.
Here.
Jody Elder.
Here.
And Dana Krushenk.
Here.
The other two participants are BevCam, who is broadcasting us, and Dr. Chirocek, who will be presenting to us in a moment. So with that out of the way, our first order of business is actually going to be the Pledge of Allegiance. And may I ask Ms. Coelho to lead us in the pledge this evening? There is a flag on this column right here and one outside. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. I appreciate that. Okay. Our next order of business is the approval of our meeting records. These are our regular school committee June 8th meeting records. We try to approve them in a timely fashion and post them for the public to enjoy. Do I have a motion to approve the June 8th, 2022 regular school committee minutes?
So moved.
I heard Ms. Visnick first, and Mayor Cahill, would you be our second?
Second.
Okay. Were there any edits, corrections, amendments that needed to be made to these meeting records? Ms. Visnick?
I sent one previously to Donna.
Okay.
Miss Bergeron, sorry. I had to really think about it. I'm out of practice with names. I sent an edit to Miss Bergeron. Okay. It was basically a typo.
A typographical correction, sure.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't have it with me.
Fair enough. Were there any other edits or corrections that a member would like to make at this time? Okay, so with a friendly amendment to fix the typographical error that's been represented to Ms. Bergeron, all those in favor? Oh, actually, we have to do a roll call because we do have one remote participant. I'm out of practice as well, Ms. Visnick. Okay, we will start with Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Visnick.
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes. That passes 7-0. I will read those alphabetically.
Should we be seeing the closed captions?
We will not see them. They're actually being broadcast on the Comcast. It's an actual closed captioning, so we will see them in the recorded version. Thank you. Thank you for that. That way it won't distract us, miss business. Right. Okay, our next order of business is a report from the chair. I wanted to give just a brief summary of the Committee of the Whole retreat that we conducted at City Hall on June 27th. We were invited to participate in Historic Beverly's presentation, and so we had our Committee of the Whole meeting there briefly beforehand. At that meeting, we had the approval of our prior meeting records for May 25th. We had some transfers that had freshly come from the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee. So those were some journal entries that needed to be approved for the year end. And then we had some gifts to schools that were graciously accepted for a various number of items totaling over $1,000. We appreciate that. Then the committee discussed some of our policy work that has been sort of put by the wayside while we worked on various COVID-related reopening strategies and other negotiations. So we did get that back on track, and I thank Dr. McKenzie for chairing that subcommittee as we get to start looking at our policies and keep them fresh. And then the final item that the committee took up was to evaluate the Fair Share Amendment Resolution that had been presented at the prior meeting. And I would like just to report out that the committee did vote to approve. It was not unanimous, it was 5-1-1. But as a body, we agreed to share with our constituents the Fair Share Amendment Resolution. It is on our website. I won't read the entire thing right now, but I just did want to point out to our community that this was a resolution that was adopted by the school committee at our Committee of the Whole meeting. I think that's all. It was a very short meeting, about 50 minutes long. The next thing the chair wanted to remind the committee about is the upcoming convention for the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. This is held the first week of November from Wednesday until Saturday. So this year it falls November 2nd through November 5th, with a bulk of the activities happening in that Wednesday afternoon, Thursday all day, and Friday all day range. It is held at the usual Resort and Conference Center at Hyannis, in Hyannis, Massachusetts. They did have an early bird registration up through August 15th. I believe registration is still open. It's not oversold this year as it had been last year when it returned. But the theme this year is promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion, constructing the narrative to define the messages. And so they have a timely program, and Beverly has actually been invited to participate. I don't know if Dr. Churchek wanted to share more.
And Dr. Morgan can jump on too.
Absolutely.
We submitted a proposal when they were looking for ideas. And we are going to be speaking with them and presenting with them. And I think, Andre, did you want to speak a little further about what that, our topic, or?
Sure. We submitted a proposal which was accepted around, and our work is going to be around how to implement measures of equity in the system such that change is impacted and the needle is moved. And so we're excited about it. Our proposal was one of the very few that were accepted out of several that were submitted. It's an opportunity for us as a district collectively, as a unified body, to do the presentation. And so we'll be reaching out to a few of you on the committee who will hopefully join us in that presentation. That's going to be in November, and we will get the details out in the next week to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morgan and Dr. Churchek. So MASC.org is the website where each of us is able to log in and get the resources from MASC. They've done a great job at putting front and center the list of topics that have been slated for this November conference. If you're interested in signing up, we can definitely get you more information, but I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that, Beverly has a place this year, and it's coming up sooner than we realize, that first week of November. So do make plans if you want to join us. Okay. And then in terms of upcoming meetings and dates, we are right back at it. We are still going to be stacking our meetings. So our next meeting, September 14th, will be a CISL, a Curriculum Instruction and Student Life meeting, stacked with our regular school committee meeting. And then 2 weeks later, we'll have our finance and facilities and another committee of the whole. So please do save the dates for that. I think, Dr. Churchak, you might mention some of the more immediate dates, such as our new hire introductions tomorrow and our welcome to staff on.
And I think everybody, I hope everyone received an invitation to the mentor. So that's our mentor program kicking off the year with our new hires tomorrow morning at Beverly High School in the library. And then we have on Monday and Tuesday our first 2 days for staff, and we'll be beginning convocation on Monday morning at 8 o'clock in the Beverly High School auditorium. I think Donna was extending out an invitation for everyone to join us. And then on Tuesday, it's a professional development day for all staff, and they'll be working more at their building level. So that's the first 2 days. And then our students in grades 1 through 9 report on Wednesday, August 31st. And then our 10 through 12th graders have a virtual day on that day, and then have their first official day. They'll run through their whole schedule on Thursday. And then our kindergartners and preschoolers begin on Wednesday, the 8th. Remember, Tuesday the 7th is the 6th is an election day?
Yeah, I think it's Thursday, the 8th.
Thursday, the 8th is the first day of kindergarten. They're doing their orientation up to that, so,
On
yeah.
Wednesdays.
All right.
Great. So mark your calendars. And I think with that, Dr. Churchak, we can switch over to the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. I had that little moment of panic, that you've already sent the Connect message out with dates in it, and then you're not getting the dates right, and oh my goodness, but I think we've got them. I think we're good. I did double check them quite a few times with a few people before I sent it, so. All right, thank you. As you all said, kind of getting back in the swing of things, a little bit out of practice, having a couple months off. But I do have some items on our superintendent's report. Couple things that we're going to be covering tonight: hiring and open positions, just sort of a quick update on how we're doing on hiring and what we have left for open positions. I'm going to talk a little bit. You have a hard copy of a letter home that we'll be sending in our first day packet, and I'll talk more about that, about the safe storage of firearms. An update, a very brief update, not probably the most comprehensive, on solar projects, but I do have a couple photos that I can share with you of where we're at in that process. We're going to talk about our COVID mitigation strategies. That information was shared out to the community today with my letter in terms of all of the pieces that are coming together, but I'll give you a formal overview, and Jody Elder is here to help answer any questions that we have on that. A quick information on the Munis Upgrade that we have going on. Dr. Flaherty has joined us remotely, I see, and so thank goodness, because she's going to walk through the Mcas graduation guidelines. And then I'm just going to give you a quick update on the temporary location request by Pioneer Charter School of Science. School of Science, one of those two. But it sounds like a lot, but I think we'll move pretty quickly. So with that, I'm going to ask Erin Brown to either come up here and join us, or you can speak from there if you have a microphone, just about our hiring and where we stand right now. I know you've probably seen a lot of information in the newspapers about hiring in schools right now. So Erin's going to bring us up to date.
All right. Hi, everyone. We've had a wonderful late spring, early summer. We started all of our hiring processes. And the principals and supervisors have done a wonderful job filling positions and interviewing and getting great candidates. So in terms of our Unit A positions, which are teachers, BCBAs, team chairs, nurses, and building-based substitutes, they've done a really nice job. We've been able to fill quite a few of those positions. You can see under the second bullet that we currently only have 3 openings that we're looking to fill in those areas under Unit A. We have a lot of the interviewing process going on currently, continuing to go on this week, and hopefully we're hoping to get those last positions in Unit A hired by the end of the week, hopefully the latest early next week. So we're doing really well, and I think a lot of that has to do, we're out early in terms of our hiring process this year, which made a huge difference to being able to attract candidates and have them join our team. So that was certainly helpful. In terms of Unit C positions, our paraprofessionals, we've hired quite a few paraprofessionals. You can see we have approximately 10 openings still in that area. As you may have noticed across town, as well as in our the email that went home, in terms of our advertising was a little bit different this year. We tried different strategies to try and find people to join our team in terms of our bus drivers, food service, and paraprofessionals. We were able to bring in 25 applicants or people that were interested in the paraprofessional position from the letter that we sent home to parents. So we were very, very excited about that. That was just last week, so the principals have been furiously interviewing and doing the hiring in that area. So we're hoping to close that 10 openings in the next week or so. So that worked out really well. It also worked out well for our food service. We had 7 applicants, and I know last week Christina Leal was interviewing them all and trying to tie up those loose ends as well. So we're doing really pretty well in those areas. We had bus drivers and van drivers and monitors that were hired in the last week, but that's still an area in terms of the CDL drivers that we're still continuing to look for people. That's an area that certainly has been in need across the country, and we're still working on that as well. But these different strategies we have used in terms of whether it was Indeed, our yard signs you may have seen, and that parent email certainly gave us great results and kind of looking at new ways to broaden our applicant pool. One of the things you might have noticed as well in the letter that was sent out was the Parent to Para program. That is something our equity group learned about as a strategy, and we researched with other communities that were using that to look at not only widening our pool, but diversifying our pool as well. So our first soiree into that is our Parent to Para program, and we're going to be looking at having several sessions during the year that support paras in this optional program to the new position as a paraprofessional. And so some of the topics that we'll be having in these sessions are behavior management, confidentiality, and then preparation sessions for a para-pro assessment. All Title I schools, the paraprofessionals are required to either have an associate's degree or higher, and so if they don't, they need to pass an assessment, and one of the assessments is the para-pro assessment, and it's a basic skills assessment. But this offers, we will offer assistance in preparation for that assessment during the year through this program. So that's a little bit on our hiring. We're very excited. We're doing pretty well overall, I'd have to say.
I mean, that's an understatement, because I think if you are watching the news or reading or following just other communities, surrounding communities, everyone is really, really struggling in the hiring. But I have to really say, I think it was an early start that we got that really helped us out in terms of making sure that we didn't have a lot of open positions. I also think there was a slight shift. We have, in the past, I'm not sure how people viewed Beverly as a great starting point for education, but we had a number of applicants who were looking to come to Beverly, to teach in Beverly, who are already, have already established themselves in the career in education. And we had some really, really top quality candidates come to us. So we're really excited about all of that as well. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions for Erin.
I don't see any questions online. Ms. Visnick.
I want to ask about the state of the bus drivers. I had sent an email earlier this summer to Dr. Trocheck and others. I don't remember who.
And others.
Especially,
At all.
Yeah, exactly. Because Worcester, Rachel and I heard about this a long time ago. Worcester used their ESSER funds to buy buses and bring their busing back in-house instead of having it, outsourced. Mm-hmm. And so they were trying to hire over 100 bus drivers. And in order to try to accomplish that goal, they were offering a pretty hefty salary. Mm-hmm. But we know that across the board, bus drivers are in short.
Yes.
So of all the things up there that really concerns me is, do we have enough bus drivers? Will we get enough bus drivers? Because there's no number up there compared to the other units.
So,
and specifically, any given, I'll try to choose my words carefully. Any given sports team has arrived at their contest late because of traffic and or we couldn't start the bus route soon enough, maybe because of traffic, maybe because of drivers, and where we don't have lights, and a lot of the other communities that we play in don't have lights, it has a terrible ripple effect. So my concern is very much around where are we with bus drivers.
Yep, thanks. So I had responded to your email, and I took the time at the time that you sent it to check in with both Dan Keefe and with Dana, and they assured me that we're good to go. Athletics, he knows they're well planned out for. There's a process for arriving at, there's a whole process that's bidded out for runs, but he is confident that he's set with that. In terms of the actual number of drivers, Dana and I have been watching it very closely, and we are at the very edge of, yes, we will run all our runs. We have drivers to run all our runs, but no one can ever be sick. So please don't anyone, make sure you're on your vitamins, take your vitamins, do all those things, because our numbers are very low. We're continuing to advertise. We're continuing to bring people in. The trick is the CDL license, and so it's great. We did get a number of applicants, but they're not all necessarily licensed with the CDL, which is what's required to drive the bigger bus. So we're continue to work on that, but Dana will be, I'm sure, behind the wheel on quite a few there and that's not ideal. We would much prefer to have more drivers on hand. It's interesting that Worcester went to that. There aren't a whole lot of communities that are doing that, but it also it's not ideal. It's not always ideal to have to contract out all of your busing, because you're then at the mercy of the rising rates for the contracts and how that can work and all of that. So we are continuing to plug away. Dana's doing a great job in terms of out and interviewing and looking for people. Erin has been working at a number of different. We've attended a couple of different of the fairs, job fairs. Desi held a job fair. We attended a job fair. And so we're just continuing to look. But I've been assured that we're all set for the drivers, for the athletic runs.
Go ahead, Ms. Wisnick.
Like the parent-to-para program, try to say that fast 3 times.
Nope.
Have we considered, because I think Worcester was doing this, not only am I going to try to recruit you to be a bus driver, but then I will send you to the CDL.
We do. We have trainers in-house, and we do that already. We already provide. We have a program within the transportation department to provide training so that anyone that's interested in pursuing a higher license, then we're able to do that. So that's actually we've always done that. We've always had that. That wouldn't even be new for the transportation. We've always done that.
Ms. Robinson?
Just to follow up on that point, if we do provide the training, do we ask them to stay a certain amount of time?
That's a great question. We've been having that conversation. Yeah, but yes, there is. And I would have to pull the contract out. I think a minimum of 1 year, right? I think so. But I know it's been part of the conversations that we've had. But yes, it does. I think the trick is that to get to that CDL, there's quite a number of hours that you have to put in order to get it. And so, it's not a quick process, but I'm extremely excited about the fact that we brought in some applicants even at the 7D or even maybe pre-7D, because that's the way you build your pool, and we're able to kind of strengthen that pipeline up to that CDL, so to speak. So, sorry, I'm looking at you and it was your question, but yeah.
Okay, any more questions for Ms. Brown or Dr. Trocheck? Next topic.
So we hope to see you all tomorrow morning. Is it tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning, as we greet our new employees. So, all right. Next, I handed out a copy of a letter for each of you to have the hard copy. This was something that was conversation with some of the other surrounding districts, but we also had an influx of parent feedback that they were interested in Beverly, taking the opportunity with our opening day packet to send home a reminder to families about the safe storage of firearms. Mass General Law, says that all guns must be stored in a certain way. And so I actually thought it was a great idea, so we are including the letter, and you have a copy of that letter right there. It also has some links to some resources, but we're just including it in the home package just as a reminder to families that, it's just a very, very important topic that we wouldn't want overlooked. So I just wanted to share that with you so that you had it, since that's a new idea. Yep. Oh, I don't
So
have to say
and
it.
the little kids, this goes home in their backpacks?
No, it's electronic.
Okay.
It's an electronic, most of our flyers are electronic distribution. They go home via electronics. So, and that way the links work too, because the hard copy, the links don't work.
Thank you.
The next, I wanted to touch base on the COVID-19 mitigation strategies as we enter the new school year. I worked with Jody Elder, and she's been working with the Board of Health. We regularly revise our protocols to reflect, what's going on. And so I wanted to just sort of review with all of you what our mitigation strategies for the coming year will be. We're in line with the CDC recommendations that came out, I think it was August 15th. And the Department of Ed issued their set of guidance as well. So as we have throughout the pandemic, following along with the guidance that we're given. So basically, staff and students with signs or symptoms of viral illnesses, it's that same list of symptoms. There's a link here, but it's the same list of symptoms for COVID-19. Must remain at home until the symptoms resolve. Hand washing and hand sanitizing is going to be, again, one of our premier ways of preventing the spread of any viruses, flu or COVID, and we're going to encourage that throughout the school day. Again, when weather allows, having the windows remain open, that promotes the air circulation. All of our I did triple check actually, all of our univents and our HVAC systems. Our univents are at the elementary, that's what we utilize at the elementary level, and our HVAC systems at the middle and high school have all undergone their preventative maintenance throughout the summer. Filters have been replaced, they're all in top working condition, and each one is operating at the highest level of MERV rating per the equipment recommendations. And again, we will be providing masks to students and staff who wish to wear masks in school. We did that throughout last year, and we'll do that again. The one area in all school buildings, masks must be worn in all of the nursing offices. And I think we're probably all going to be wearing masks in medical facilities for a long time to come. So, and just as a side note, we all, as always, will be watching the viral levels, and should there be a change, then we would be revisiting our protocols and coming back with more information. Again, as for isolation and exposure to the isolation and exposure protocol, quarantine for exposure for COVID-19 is no longer recommended or required for children or staff in school settings, and that's regardless of vaccination status or where the exposure occurred. It's actually, in particular, no asymptomatic person should be excluded from school as a result of exposure. So we're making it very clear, and that we will not be doing contact tracing, and you will not be excluded because you've been exposed at this point in time. What to do when a student or staff member tests positive. Then if in fact a student or staff does test positive, they should isolate at home for 5 days, and it's recommended that if that's the case, you mask around others in your home while you're home from your date of symptom onset, or if there's no symptoms, from the date of the positive test. And just as a side note, if the individuals develop moderate or severe symptoms, they definitely should consult with their medical provider and then continue to stay home beyond that 5 days if the symptoms are ongoing. After the 5-day period, if the viral symptoms are improving and the individual is fever-free without the use of fever-reducing or cold flu medicine for at least 24 hours, they may return to work or school on day 6. A well-fitting mask should be worn through day 10 while inside school buildings, if in fact you have had a positive test. However, if the individual has a negative test on day 5 or later, they don't need to mask. So a negative test you would not have to come back in a mask. And if the individual is unable to mask, we have some of our younger students or students in some of our special programs, then they would need to return to school with a negative test, and that would be on day 5 or later if that's when they got their negative test. In terms of testing, for the upcoming school year, we're not going to be conducting our surveillance testing or on asymptomatic individuals. We're not contact tracing, and there's no test to stay in schools. We will not be conducting symptomatic testing. However, what we will be doing is if a student reports to the nurse's office and has a fever, when we discharge that student home with their parent, we're going to be sending them home with their own eye health test kits so that they can use them at home. Primarily, for the main reason is that even if we were to test them that day, it seems as if it's really 2 days later or 48 hours later when you're going to have a positive result. So we would rather equip them with the test to be able to test their student later and then, be able to manage that for themselves at home. Our nursing staff will, as always, be available to advise families regarding the isolation and quarantine based upon any reported positive results. So if a family has questions, they certainly can feel free to call our nursing office, and we can certainly walk them through or help them through the process. And then, again, finally, vaccination. We know that that's been one of our strongest mitigation strategies, and so we're encouraging everyone to get vaccinated and boosted according to the following schedule. And the schedule that is there this is a link to the CDC site, which helps outline what your vaccine, what you should be thinking about in terms of how you remain boosted throughout that process. So that's what I have there. Any questions from anybody on that one? I did send home a ConnectEd message today with just a welcome letter, but all of the mitigation strategies there and translated in all languages. So hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to get it and know what's going on.
Looking around the table for questions. I don't see any. Dr. Silva, no. I want to thank Nurse Jody Elder for joining us.
Yes, I know.
I think she's off the hook tonight. Don't see any
This is a
questions.
first. If there's no questions.
Yeah,
I'll
but we
take
know
it.
it's nice to have you waiting in the wings should there be any questions.
Always available.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. The next item that I have is a solar project update at the middle and high school. I'm sure you've been driving by and seeing the work that's been going on. I'm amazed, actually, how you can drive by one day and there are no posts, and then you go by the next day and there's all the posts there. And it's been kind of really exciting to watch. And so this, if you remember, was the detailed schema that we were planning on putting up. And I have for you tonight a couple pictures of what actually exists. So on the left is our middle school, and actually spoke with Lisa Oliver today, who spoke with the site boss. I'm not sure who it was. Yellow vest. He knew what he was. She said he looked really important. I'm like, okay, that's good. He confirmed that the fences should be down by Monday morning when we have a need for the parking. They've really been moving quite quickly. And in terms of the timeline and schedule that Dan Voss laid out for Lisa and Betty and I in a meeting, we're pretty much on schedule, especially around what's accessible in terms of how accessible the site would be, when things would be available. We, had a plan all along as to which areas of the campus would be blocked off for construction, and they have, I would say, pretty much perfectly stuck to everything that they have said that they were going to do, so it's pretty amazing.
I just quickly want to give kudos to the bus drivers where this parking lot was blocked off and you had to do the hairpin turns. That was pretty sharp. I was nosy and I came over one day and I was like, oh my goodness, how did
Think
they
about
do
those
it?
novices in their first hours trying to figure out how to maneuver that little.
But I was happy to see they're starting already to take
Yep.
down some of the fencing and open that
Yep.
widely again. So
So
thank
we've
goodness.
been assured that the access that we believe there's only one little space that we're still watching, which is the near neighborhood 3 door. But we talked today, and that also should be cleared up for Wednesday.
There's a
Maybe
big
not
hole
Monday.
there right now.
There's a
but
very big hole there. So
nice fencing
and
around
there was
that.
5th grade open house there tonight, though, and that went well, so that was good. And then to the right is the high school, and the high school. It's funny. I took this picture on Monday, and if I were to take it again now, there's about almost like overnight the north side of the lot all of a sudden was erected, and so that is coming together really nicely as well. So.
And for that, is there a timeline on when that's going to be open? I know we have students
Yep, so we knew
drive
knew
there.
that we were not going to have the high school student north lot available until September 29th or October 1st, I think. But the south lot is coming along. I don't know, I haven't had a chance to speak on that campus. Mayor, I don't know if you spoke to Dan Voss on Wednesday. I was not at a meeting. You guys had a meeting that I wasn't at, so,
Yesterday.
yeah.
I mean, look, we had always been pushing and planning and hoping to get them out of here by the end of summer. But as Dr. Trochik said, there was a point where it became clear that wouldn't happen. They had a tough time sourcing the steel. I think, not to delve too deeply, but I think what happened was a bigger job from another state kind of jumped them in line a bit, and the steel manufacturer kind of shunted us aside a bit when things had been on a better schedule before that. So point being, the couple of rows up by the access road are the ones that won't be available for student parking until the end of September. And so as Dr. Trochik said, Mrs. Taylor and team, we all figured that out about a month ago, and they've been working on, trying to make sure there are alternate opportunities for students to park as nearby as possible if they're trying to drive. So, and I know we've all received an outreach today complaining about that. So, yeah.
Luckily, the weather's been fantastic, so it
Yeah.
should be a nice walking weather, at least for the month of September.
Yeah, and if I could also just say, there are always some headaches with construction. We've collectively worked hard to try to prevent and minimize and mitigate, and we're getting, as a community, 4.5 megawatts of clean and renewable energy that'll be in place for the next 25 years. So, necessary, and we'll keep working with the team to make sure that they get out of there as quickly as possible.
Okay. Ms. Visnick, I saw your hand.
Thanks. How much, when you said, Mr. Mayor, up near the access road won't be available, is it like a row or two up near the hill, or is it the whole parking lot?
Right.
And I asked that question partially because of the communication we got today, but partially because I too have a child that drives. I am frequently on the high school campus, and as a whole, what I believe is the student parking area, like in front of the cafeteria, is not usually very populated. And so if like half of it, the half closer to the school could be open.
So so if you look up to the drawing up here,
Yeah.
if you this time the section that is,
It's the right-hand,
it's the right hand, and no, it's the left
top or
hand.
bottom? No, the high
Oh,
school's
it's the
on
right hand, yeah. And so where you see LS2 and LS1,
Maybe if you go back to the picture. So it's this,
well, the picture, I was trying to show the number of spaces. I think it's about 60. Didn't we say it was about 68 to 70 spaces? I think Mark
it's the
Thomas.
top
said that.
half of that lot, right? As you're standing at the school looking up at the array being built, to the right side, there's nothing. To the left side, there are two banks, right? The bank of panels closer to the building, the fences are coming down, the laydown areas, the materials are getting out, that's going to be available Monday morning. The top array that's currently being erected and topped off, that's the part that'll continue to be unavailable for parking throughout September.
So if you look at this, there's the north and the south. So the north would be the top part, and the south would be the bottom part.
Well,
And
if you look at the picture again, just one more time,
that's the
it's
south.
what you don't see.
Right.
It's to the left and up.
I'll drive by later on my way home.
If you know where the electric plug-in stations are at the high school, they're in front of the outdoor seating cafeteria. That's the south. It's fenced off as the south and then north. And so this one half is going to open up, but the top half is not going to be available.
And you've seen they've been doing trenching on that access road to bring all the wiring down to the transformer. The goal is to have all that paved over by Monday morning. And they also know that if it's not done by then, they've got a window after 10:30 Monday, Dr. Trotrick, when everybody who's started there Monday morning will be back to other buildings, and then they've got Tuesday
Yeah.
before the kids arrive on Wednesday. So we'll
And
continue
we did, when
be
in our
talking about
communication
that.
out to staff, we let them know that actually it would be best for the high school, even when we're at the high school, to park at the middle school and walk up to the high school, hoping for good weather, or use the alternate lot at Balch Park. That there's a little parking lot right there. So we did give them fair warning that there's a parking concern.
And they're going to be very visible, and they're going to be working there throughout September. They'll be doing a lot of the electrical work, on a lift, one section, one piece at a time, and they're going to be using 2 shifts. They're going to have a second shift crew in there from mid-afternoon to late evening for a number of weeks to try to get it all done. So, we'll be seeing them.
Thank you very much for the updates.
All right. So Munis Upgrade. So I don't know how familiar you are with what Munis. The Munis system is the system that is. It's actually a system that we use in the schools and that the municipality uses. It's one of the largest software systems that we utilize. It does a lot of things. It does it does our payroll. It does accounts receivable and billing and all of those things. But in particular, for us in the schools, we have been really concentrating on how the human capital management part of it is. So we have lamented for a while our paper stubs that we get and inability to kind of electronically access data or our own information as employees. And so we actually entered into a assessment, infrastructure assessment for the human resource side of things for the schools. And we had the folks from Munis do an overview of all of the modules that we access, the modules that we don't access, what we would need to do to improve efficiencies, both for payroll and for all of the things that staff would like to do is access their, understand what their 403B and access all their information. So we had a number of efficiencies that we've identified that we can actually do with the system the way we have it right now, but we did it in anticipation of an upgrade that we're all doing in conjunction with the city. And so a number of areas that we identified were to utilize position control for staff allocation. So we're investigating what that would look like, looking at reporting features for accurate reporting. And the big one is the employee self-service, right? So opening it up so that an employee can sign in and get their information and check what they're doing and all of that. And then the workflow for hiring, the deployment of trainings, our electronic employee files. Right now, if you apply to be a substitute teacher, even in the Beverly Public Schools, the stack of papers that you fill out is enormous, right? And we do triplicate forms for personal days and triplicate forms for vacation days and all of these things that we really know we can do a much better job if we had the ability to have a workflow that worked electronically. And when we onboard staff and when we hire, there's a tremendous paper flow that we're still involved in. So our goals right now as we move through the process is to, again, we're working with the city. We're hoping it will be complete by January of 2023. That would be the upgrade part of it, is to begin, implementing some of these modules. And so in anticipation of that, what we're doing is beginning our training and setting up training for the current modules that we have and for modules that we anticipate getting, looking at the position control, job class masters, reporting and workflows and some of those things so that our employees are ready when they become available, to be able to do that. And we really, really want to employ the self-service, the Tyler content management, and the applicant tracking by March of 23 in anticipation of next year's hiring cycle when we begin the process. So this is a huge undertaking that we feel has been a long time in coming, something that we really think will help. It will help a lot of things, but in the end, we hope it will help our employees be able to access what they need in a timely manner and make it really helpful. So we just wanted to give you a quick little update on that. We continue to work with the city regarding some of the specifics on it. There's, lots of questions around the technicality of the implementation of it, but we're working with them very closely on that. So it's something that we're watching really closely. So just wanted to give you a quick heads up that we were working on some of that stuff. So you didn't think that we just didn't do anything all summer? No, I'm only kidding. And then my last, no, yeah, it's not my last, but another one is Mcas graduation guidelines. I got a request to share some of the information, and Dr. Flaherty is here. I hope to do that for me.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to all be back together again because this is just one more sign that our kiddos are going to be returning and our teachers soon. So it's an exciting week. As you all probably heard in the news just last week, the Board of Education did make some changes in the upcoming years to the passing scores that will be needed for a competency determination in order to graduate in the public schools in Massachusetts. And we're still getting some information, and we'll get some training, and we'll keep you updated as we get more information. But I thought that it may be helpful, in case you're getting questions, to at least kind of show you the chart of where we stand right now. So this first chart is for students that pass without what we call an EPP, or DESE calls an EPP. And you'll see on the bottom that that stands for an Educational Proficiency Plan. And basically what that is a written plan that helps students to close their learning gaps and or to be able to pass a retest. So when we say this first slide is the graduation requirements for competency determination without an EPP. So these are students that are considered to have passed the test and they are done with Mcas and any type of requirement. And so these were actually the scores that were in place for last year's graduating class and will stay in place through the class of 2025. And so for English, that score is 472, and for math, it's 486. You'll see the science score looks different, and that's because they're still on the legacy scale. That will be changing over in the next couple of years. We're in a transition period right now. But 240 is what we would consider proficient, and at that point, the students would not need any additional support in science. The vote moved the score. Math is already at a 486. What it will do for our incoming freshmen, the class of 2026, through the class of 2030, this was actually an amendment during the vote. The initial motion was through the class of 2029, but it was extended to include the 2030 class so that you would have a complete 4 years and then be able to look back historically at data before any other long-range decisions were made. And so the score for English and math will go to 486, and science, which is right now at 240, will go to 470. They will have transitioned over into the new scoring mechanism for the next generation of scores. And then for classes currently in 2031, moving forward, the passing score would be 500 in both English language arts and math, and science will remain at 470. You'll see an asterisk next to the 486, so you kind of get an idea. Does that mean that everybody has to get to the meets expectation category? And it doesn't. It still goes down into the upper half of the partially meeting expectations. Dr. Trochek, can you move to the next slide? Now, this would be the scores for what we call students passing. So they have passed, they've met their MCAS requirement, but their scores are below the graduation requirement. And so they have to pass, but they have to have an educational proficiency plan. And pretty much that is in place now for our students as well, but it's handled mainly in their 11th and 12th grade courses. So guidance counselors will work with students to make sure that they have math and or an English. Maybe it's an additional course, it may be a remedial course, it may be some tutoring, it may be helping them prepare for the retest. And most of our students do pass once they take the retest. But the current scores for our classes 2023 through 2025, if they're in the range of 455 to 471, they would pass, but they would have to have one of these plans. And then for math, it's 469 to 485, and they would have one of those plans. And for science, they don't have to have an EPP, but they would take a retest, and their score here would be 220. So they're still considered to pass, but they actually wouldn't. The science would not have to take another test. They have passed, but the proficiency plans right now only involve science, math, and English. The proposals that were passed just last week for the classes of 2026 through 2030 would move that bottom score to 470. And you'll see that that remains for our classes 2031 and above as well. So that would still be considered passing, but they would have to have a plan moving forward. And in a minute, I'm going to show you some of the things that would be included in a plan. But it's mainly making sure that students have the coursework and or tutoring or other supports in order to help them to close their learning gaps, but they have met the requirement to graduate. Dr. Trocha, can you put up the last slide? So as we were talking about an EPP, these are some of the things that would be on there. One would be that guidance counselors would meet with students. Parents would also be let known on an annual basis what will be being done to support their students' learning. They would talk specifically about any tutoring or individualized academic supports that the student would receive in order to help close those gaps. We would talk about their Mass Core. When you see Mass Core on here, that just talks about the Beverly High School Program of Studies. It's what we teach all our students. And we also would need to make sure that we were supporting students that were in our vocational, so the After Dark program, or if they're in the designated early college program, we would have to work around and make sure that they were still able to participate in those programs while we were supporting them. And then there's also, you see the last bullet, which talks about our students that are adult learners or who have exited high school. So there's some work we need to do to help support them as well. So that's kind of just an overview of where we are for this year, what the vote was and where they're going to move the scores. And like I said, we haven't really received much more information than this, but it just happened last week. And as we get more information, we will make sure that we keep you up to date.
Thank you so much. Ms. Visnick has a question.
I want to know if we have looked at the change scores and kind of projected out what we have today and how we expect those higher scores to impact our student body, almost like from a trend point of view. So including but not limited to, like, how many students do we have, quote unquote, today, which would have been last year, who needed an EPP to graduate? How many just didn't make it, right? Did we, in fact, hold some students back, or did they fail to get their diplomas because they didn't make the requirements either with or without an EPP?
I can get that Mark Thomas does the Mcas for the high school. I believe when we were talking in the spring that we did not have any students that were kept back from graduating. And we will also, we're still awaiting, they're a little bit late coming out, our spring MCAS scores. And once we get those in, we'll be able to do some trend analysis, because last year's class was the first class that had to meet the higher 486 in math. So we'll be able to do some trend work once that data comes in, but we don't have full access to that yet. But we will.
Follow up.
Sure, Ms. Visnick.
So I'm wondering if I feel like we need that data to then look like, what if we had a whole bunch of children who, like, our trending looks like were passing now, but with the higher scores they won't pass, and then what is our plan for how do we bridge the gap?
Right. So we will, but we don't have the data yet. It hasn't been released. So
But also
that's what
remember that-
Dr. Flaherty was telling you. The MCAS scores have not been released yet, so we can't look back at last year's group to do that trend data. And this just came out, about a week ago. So you're exactly right. That's exactly what we would do. We're going to dig in and see, what would that look like? How many of our students? What percentage? Is there any way that we can think about, in advance what that will look like? We will have information for our students in the class of. Sorry, I need the numbers. 23 and 24, but the data's not here yet, so that's part of the problem.
And do we?
Yeah,
We did not, and
remember
sorry.
that these higher scores they're not affecting our current sophomores to seniors. This
Right.
is for our incoming freshman class.
Right.
And the other thing that makes it a little bit difficult is that the Department of Ed sets the cut scores every year. So you can look at trend data, but they set the scores depending on what the overall scores of everybody looks like before they determine what score is considered partially meeting, and exceeding. And so that's a little bit difficult because that can change, meaning sometimes you might need 34 questions to reach that. And another year, depending on the data, they may put the cut score at 27 questions. So you're always kind of working around a little bit in the mud.
But I think what we will have, which is a good opportunity, is we'll have their 7th grade data and their 8th grade data. So they will have taken MCAS in the past, few years. So, for example, when we're looking at data for freshman academy students, we're going to be able to take a look at how have they performed on MCAS, what sort of things might they need, who are the kids, and we already get that data anyway because it's called they do it the bottom 25%. You get a sort of a information, and kids are disaggregated by the lowest performing, so that it comes right out in that way. And we utilize that data already, but we never had a number that we had to aim for that was different than the number we were already aiming for, if that makes sense, if you know what I mean by that.
Have we analyzed like that lowest 25% to see where are there trends in that grouping relative to our needs categories or other kinds of categories?
Yeah, we use that. That is exactly what we do. That's how we utilize the data that we get. Especially when we're looking at, we have had some additional math supports that are available. So if you were a sophomore and you were taking a math class, you might have also been assigned to a second math class or invited into a second math class to support the lower performing scores. So yeah, I mean, that's what we do with the data. We sort of mix and match and look at it in all the different ways. I think one of the things that is helpful too is that along with all of this, the Department of Ed has been making improvements to their Edwin database as well, which allows us to kind of more easily extrapolate and disaggregate information by a number of different factors. So
I guess what I mean is like literally by subgroup. So
Yes.
could I see that, okay, we have most of our children who are in this group are, socioeconomically challenged, for instance.
And that's always available when you look at the report cards. But yeah, we look at that information has been what we've been reporting and what we have. So.
And so I'm asking you, can you generalize that bottom 25% as being identifiable into one of our high needs groups?
I would generalize that that there are a higher percentage of students of the lower socioeconomic, as well as I believe our Hispanic Latino population in ELA, but not necessarily in math.
Okay,
And we'll be able to more than generalize it. Once the data comes out, we can actually run reports that will give us the specific students that will fall in the bottom 25%. But the data is not available to us yet. It hasn't been posted for us to be able to do that. And we're anticipating it within the next couple of weeks. Yeah. Remember that during the pandemic, we had 2 years where we didn't have Mcas. So we had to get 2 years of data before we can look at a trend. Mm-hmm. And so last year was a reset, and then we'll have additional data this year. And so by the time we get this year's data, we'll be able to really see a trend. But at least this year, we'll be able to look at scores, and we'll know who was in the bottom 25%, who was in the top 25%. And will have item analysis and growth scores, which we weren't able to have because we were missing two years of scores.
Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. So I know that our goal is to accelerate learning. Do we think that these new passing numbers are going to affect the number? Like, I know we're hoping that students will take an honors class or an accelerated class. Is that going to?
I think it strengthens the discussion and conversation that we need to do that, because, you know, I mean, we're saying that a high standard is we have high expectations for all students in our district, and that our expectation is that all of our students are going to be able to understand, master, and perform at a high level. And so I actually think it supports exactly that.
Okay, and I have another general question. I don't know if anybody can answer this, but I've been looking into trying to just find out who is scoring these tests, not the objective questions, but the open response essay questions. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that, but
I was
been
under
trying
the
to
impression,
research.
and I don't want to speak like it's fact because I haven't looked at it for a few years, but that it was teams of teachers that were recruited and trained as to how to do the writing portions. I know, at least back when I was a principal, so was that really a long time ago? It was kind of. There were a couple of teachers on my staff who went, and they went to like a week-long institute, and they learned how to score, and they learned how to apply the rubric, and they did that work. So I was under the impression that the writing portion was still done by teams of teachers. And Dot, I think, don't they often advertise for teachers to join? Yeah, I see it often that they're looking for teachers to come and be trained and be part of that. So I believe it's teachers that are doing that.
Yeah, I'd like to know that it is certified teachers who are scoring or having this much of an impact on our kids' graduation.
The teams of teachers are also the ones that help to design the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Cahill?
Thanks, Madam President. Thank you, Dr. Flaherty. So I just got a really threshold question just in looking at and trying to understand the numbers that are required for passage. What is the lowest possible score and what is the highest possible score on these tests? I guess what's that scale, right?
The lowest possible score is 440, and the highest possible score is 560.
560?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And right now, 500 is the threshold for meeting expectations. So what used to be called proficient is now called meeting expectations, but 500 is the number that is the meeting expectations. And the window between 470 and 500 is partially meeting expectations. So what they're saying is you, in the previous years, you had to get just over that, into that partially meeting expectations group in order to pass to make a graduation requirement. And now that's what Dr. Flaherty meant when she said that 486, how that asterisk is there, that's dead center of the partially meeting expectations. 500 is meeting expectations.
You have one more
And
topic?
I think my last item, I did send an email to all of you, just sort of with an update as this was happening, just to let you know the Pioneer Charter School of Science 2, it's an expansion of the Pioneer Charter School of Science, which already exists in Malden. They were approved actually pre-pandemic in January of 2020 to expand their charter, and their charter region is Lynn, Salem, Peabody, Danvers, Saugus. It does not include Beverly. What a charter region means is those are the communities that get priority admissions into that charter school. So those are the sending communities, so to speak, to a charter school. So they had set designs to open a school in Peabody on a site on Margin Street, and they had a temporary location set up for their pre-K to 2 classes. And unfortunately for them, their site fell through. They went around to find another site. They entered into a lease with the former St. Mary's School, the site on Chapman Street. And so in order for them to change their charter, they have to go to the Department of Ed and to change their location. They go to the Department of Ed and they have to get the commissioner to approve the location change. As such, they have reached out to us with a letter informing us that they've requested to do that. And they're looking, we have the opportunity, if we choose, to make comment to the commissioner as to whether, what our feelings are on it. This was a new thing for me, charters. I had not ever delved into the world of charter. Beverly doesn't have any charters. We aren't a part of anybody else's charter region. That doesn't mean that our students couldn't go, but again, they have low priority admissions to charter schools, so it's very challenging, I think, probably for that. The request is not to include Beverly in their charter region. They're not looking to expand into Beverly as a sending community. They're looking at, as I've been told, they're looking just for a location for this year, a 1-year location. I did get a copy of the lease, and it seems that it's in line with just a 1-year lease of the building. They will have 132 students in their K to 2. Sorry, I said pre-K earlier. It's just K to 2. And again, their goal and their charter is to increase year by year into a larger number of students, so that when they're at capacity in Peabody, their plan is to go to Peabody for the start of the 23 school year. But at capacity, they would be a K-8 school. So they're looking for to relocate, temporarily locate at St. Mary's. So I wanted to just make sure I was clear and share that information with you. I asked, because I was unfamiliar with the process, in terms of a location, what kinds of comment would you be looking for? And I was told, well, there's not really an impact on Beverly because you're not part of the charter region. Sometimes there'd be no comment made or anything. And so I didn't want to go and respond until I had a chance to share it with all of you and hear what everyone had to say or was thinking.
So Ms. Bisnick had a question?
My question comes around, what are their expected hours of operation? How many buses are going to be bringing those 132 students in, especially given our current traffic situation in the city of Beverly and the limited number of ways that you can get to the St. Mary's, the formerly known as St. Mary's School.
Formerly known as St. Mary's. The information that I have regarding their transportation, they are planning to provide busing to the residents of their sending district. So they are planning to transport in buses the 132 students. I don't have specifics if it's 2 buses or 3 buses or 5 buses. I'm not really exactly sure. I can try to get that question answered, but I don't have that information right now. And what was the other question about that?
Well, we already have some traffic challenges, and there are limited ways to get to that site.
Yep.
So when we get to, as a community, give some kind of feedback to DESE, maybe our feedback should be like, I don't know, do we actually as a city have the capacity to have that many more buses coming down pretty thin streets at the same exact time that we're trying to get our own children to school on time?
I can certainly include comment of that nature. I'm Go ahead. I know the mayor was hoping to speak.
Mayor Cahill, go ahead.
I don't know if I want to speak on this. I have no problem saying to DESE, please reject their application. But at the same time, it would be greatly preferable that they run a few buses in and out of town rather than have all the parents try to drive the kids in and out of town if they're coming, right?
Well, it might be best if we could say, please don't come and stagger your start. Our last school starts at whatever, so if you could start later, that would be helpful to us. That would be like a good community partner kind of thing to do, right? So maybe we have some influence in that area, as opposed to saying, oh, guess what? They want to start at 8 o'clock, and that is like the worst time in the city of Beverly to try to get anywhere right now. Well, in a week from now.
I think, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've been chewing on this since I first heard of it, and based on the fact that the sending communities are from the south, from Peabody, from Salem, I wonder if we could make the comment that they can only come over the Salem Bridge rather than, Elliott Street or down through our downtowns or some sort of, like, this would be our preferred route for your 2 to 3 buses. And maybe
I think we can comment anything we want. I think we certainly have the ability. So there's 2 different processes when it comes to charter schools. This is a request to the commissioner only. So really, it's only about location, and this is a decision the commissioner makes. If they were making a more expansive change to their original charter, they would actually have to go to the Board of Ed. So we know they're not trying to make a substantial change or a permanent change, because otherwise the process or the procedure for where they would have to go would be different. So we have the ability to submit any comment that we would like to the commissioner, and he will consider it however he wants to consider it and respond either, they actually did apologize for the short notice. I mean, we got the notice on Monday, and so it's Wednesday and we're supposed to comment by Friday. So, but that's because obviously they're gearing up for the beginning of the school year as well. So I'm happy to, entertain any kind, maybe Rachel, you and I could work on something that we could submit in that could incorporate some of these ideas. I'm certainly happy. We have the ability to say whatever we want to say about it. We don't make it wouldn't be a final decision. It would just be a request, or could you consider, or in light of, we'd like to just share this little fact about downtown Beverly right now.
Mayor Cahill.
Dr. Trochik, how certain are you that they're going to be busing the majority or all of the kids?
It's in the letter that he submitted. It says, we will expand our current transportation services to this new facility and provide busing to residents of our sending districts. So I don't think they can make their children ride buses, but they clearly have stated that they're making it available to families. I'm not sure how many families after day 1 would want to continue to drive if a bus was available to bring them.
Can we get access to just how many staff and admin they're going to have?
I can ask those questions.
And how many separate households that number of students represents? And a sense of how many of the kids are going to be bused versus be brought.
Yeah, I can ask. I won't. So I don't believe I'll have that. I think if that's information that we would like, I would suggest that we put comment together that includes some of those questions that would then elicit that response. But I don't think I could gather all that information before we would be required to submit.
Without drafting it here at the table, I think we could each individually submit our concerns to Dr. Trochek to author such a letter. And I think what we would just want to agree on tonight is that we do want to provide some level of content or comment by Friday's deadline. Is that?
I mean, could you send them in note form? You don't have to try to write it. Just tell me if you please include or gather information on, and I'm happy to put together. It's just going to be a letter in letter form that I would submit to the commissioner.
So just for Robert's rules, I'll make a motion that we instruct the superintendent to submit comments in the form of a letter from the Beverly Public Schools.
Second.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure, Dr. Silva.
St. Mary's, were they providing, was this a location that was providing schooling in the past?
Yes, in fact, I saw them changing out light bulbs and planting flowers today as I drove by. It is still a school building.
So it is still a school?
It's a school building.
But in the past, it was used as a school. Is that right?
Correct.
Its enrollment dropped far enough that it combined with St. John's, and now we have the Saints Academy. But it used to.
My point is that in the past, it's been operating as a school. In the past, kids were transported there. I think it's, it would be a good idea to allow for that building, which has been used historically for that purpose, to continue to be used in that, as a school. So I think, I don't see there being a huge problem with 2 or 3 buses being added to the route to get them to a school that's at a different location, away from the middle school and the high school. on another side of the city.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any others? Again, we can submit individually directly to the superintendent.
Do we need
Remembering.
to repeat what we've said here this evening? If I have nothing more to say, do I need to put it in writing?
No, I have it. I
Okay.
got you.
Thank
Got you
you.
covered on that.
And BevCam has this recorded as well.
BevCam has us covered too.
Okay. Okay. Any other
That is all I
questions
have.
or concerns? Okay. I did ask for our Finance and Facilities Subcommittee Chair, Ms. Visnick, to give us just a quick recap since they did meet after our last regular school committee meetings a couple months ago. And a number of the topics related to the opening of school, which we have scheduled for next week. So Ms. Visnick, please.
The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on June 22nd. Dr. McKenzie actually led that meeting as I was home with COVID. Thank you, Dr. McKenzie. We were fortunate enough to meet, well, those of us who were here in person, the Assistant Director of B&G, Mr. John Coffey. They talked, he and Mr. Bob Shiroli talked about the summer work that they were doing, including but not limited to adding bottle filling stations in each of the elementary schools and McEwen. A great conversation around assessing our playgrounds and prioritizing which ones need work. And the top two playgrounds that need work are Ayers and the Cove Aim playground. Ayers has a condemned bridge on one of the structures, and the Cove Aim playground is about to get the donation, the monetary donation from the Odd Fellows. They came here and gave us a wonderful donation. Longer term, all of the playgrounds are being looked at in terms of changing the mulch to be the rubberized material, which would be a very cool thing. There is a plan for our PTOs to continue to fundraise and partially fund as they have done historically, which is always a nice help. There was some talk about replacing the flooring in the elementary schools, especially the really old, nasty carpeting. We also had food services. Ms. Leal reported out that we served 110,000 breakfasts. That's easy for me to say. And 500,000 lunches last year, despite supply chain issues. We had Dan Keefe, and we smushed a lot into this meeting. We had Dan Keefe review the year in sports. And last year we had a lower freshman involvement, but that was not unique to Beverly. We had no cancellations due to lack of transportation, which was great, but some other communities did. We are suffering a little bit of a coaching shortage, just like in general, there's the great resignation. But in general, we are fortunate because we have a lot of returning coaches. Then we also had Transportation Director Dana Krushank and talk about just in general, the struggle to find drivers. And that's just a, universal truth right now. Whew. Okay, that's all the things that I think we talked about at that meeting.
Correct. And you did bring the transfers, as I mentioned earlier, to our committee of the whole. So those were taken care of. And then we'll get back on our regularly scheduled meetings
Can't
in
wait.
September. The last item we did put on this agenda this evening, a little unusual for committee of the whole, was just an opportunity for any of the school committee members to report out the communications they've received over the summer, since it's been a while since we talked. I think a couple of them have been brought up already. Mayor Cahill, go first.
If I could share one thing, I think you folks all know that the city's racial equity audit has been completed, and we've been working with the city council president to try to get a special meeting scheduled. Looks like it'll be late September or maybe more likely early October to have our consultants from HR&A come and present in person to the city council so that we can have a public conversation about the findings of the audit and the beginnings of addressing the recommended action items. So I'll try to make sure that, that's out there as soon as the date and time is finalized.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Robinson?
I did bring some concerns to the superintendent about just some scheduling conflicts in terms of what the calendar said and what people were hearing. I think there was just different information coming from different places. So just maybe making sure that all dates are accurate and don't conflict with orientations and such.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Ms. Visnick?
I think, like you said, we've already talked about a few of the things, including the changes in the Mcas scores, the COVID strategies for the year, busing shortages, and the fact that I think we have more residents who would like to pay for busing and get on the buses if they could, because traffic getting across town right now is absolutely horrid. But the biggest question that I had that is still, I think, unanswered is that we have a line item. We approved our budget for this school year with some money around composting trash. I don't remember what exactly the line item said, but if what is the plan for how are we going to spend those dollars? And I was specifically being asked by a group in the high school, and I asked them to go ask Betty, but I think it would be great if we had that conversation, or maybe if there is a plan now how that line item, excuse me, is going to get spent, if we could have a presentation on that somewhere moving forward. So.
Sounds like a good topic maybe for finance and facilities, September 14th, maybe? Oh, or wait, no,
Hoisted by my own
28th?
petard.
Maybe? Okay. We'll take a note of that. Yeah, so we talked about safe storage, the letter that's going home to all families. I had received a number of postcards and emails on that topic. Transportation concerns, as Ms. Visnick had mentioned and has come up a couple times, people do want to have the opportunity to pay for riding our buses if we had more routes and more drivers. The solar project parking, I had received some concern that the project wasn't going to be open on time for getting into school, and I thank Dr. Cherchak for making that presentation, as well as the mayor for filling in some of the specifics about the piece of the project at the high school. Also had received some questions about the Mcas scores, which we've talked about now twice, and also had been in receipt of some of those composting questions, like what's our plan. So I think those topics have either been covered tonight or could be covered in a future meeting. Were there any other communications to school committee members to bring to the table tonight? Okay. As always, if there are topics that we want to have on our agenda, again, we're meeting as a regular school committee on September 14th, and we'll be meeting as a committee of the whole on the 28th. Please do let the chair know so that we can have the appropriate person ready to speak to those topics. And with that, I believe we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Ms. Visnick. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. We do need to do a roll call. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick,
Yes.
and Ms. Abel, yes. 7-0. Thank you, BevCam, as always, for recording us and putting us out there so everyone can play along at home. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you soon, and can't wait to be back at school, all right? Thanks.